welcome, everyone, to another If by Whiskey. It is my honor and privilege, the man right here, it is my right, but it is right here. Mark Maresca, White Pillbox. Welcome, sir. There's so much stuff going on that it's like Mission Impossible. It is your task, should you choose to accept it, to white pill us by the end of this episode, sir. So welcome. How you doing?
Thank you, Mark. Great to be here. Great to see you again. Great to be on your show. Your show is so awesome. And
Thank
yes,
you.
I will do my best today.
So welcome. So let's get right into it because this weekend was pretty interesting for our people. Like we are people, but we're also not the people, right? Because you and I have the ideas. We're past the party part, but we have a lot of people still in a system mindset, right? So we had a Libertarian Party convention. We had a lot of elections. Let's start with Massey. Let's just dive right into it. So if anyone's not aware, there was a Kentucky 4th district congressional primary between two Republicans, some guy who's 20 years older who they said Massey was the older guy, apparently, according to the they thought Massey was too old from the advertising. It was just hilarious. But anyway, Thomas Massey, they poured about $32 million to oppose him, the largest funded opposition or funded campaign or whatever in the history of a primary, and he gets booted. Used to get 75%, 82% of his own constituents in primaries, and now he loses by 10,000 votes, actually, which is a pretty big chunk. But everyone on our side, there's so many spins to it, right? So you've got, I'd love to hear your perspective because there's so many other ones. I'd love to delve into it, but what are you seeing off of, what did you feel or what did you sense going into that election? Because I'm sure you kept an eye on it because Massey's such a great guy. You probably were pulling for him, right?
I really can't say that. But that doesn't mean I was pulling against him either. You want my honest answer? Did I
I love
follow
it.
it? I paid attention because it's always interesting when someone who seems to have seems to align with us in a lot of areas, even if they're in politics. It's always interesting when they get the spotlight, when they're doing something, like in this case, I believe he was a very big factor in getting these Epstein files released. He certainly kept it on the radar. So those kinds of things are always interesting to me, but not because I personally have hope that that's going to lead to something. It's just an interesting twist in a horse race, or it's an interesting twist in a basketball game where something happens that was utterly unexpected. And so it catches my attention. But to be perfectly honest, going in, I did not have particular expectations one way or the other. So for me, when it turned out that he got beaten for whatever reason it was, I was not particularly surprised. All of that seems par for the course for politics to me. So that's my honest answer about it.
Yeah. So strategically thing, I agree with you. For me, the same thing is I support and encourage Thomas Massey. I met the gentleman. He seems like a really upstanding
Right.
man. Um, but I wouldn't vote for him. Sorry, I'm done. I'm done with the voting thing. So what was interesting about this is we saw this huge, this little guy, right, who's been upstanding pretty, still votes with his party 90+% of the time. And there's just a concerted effort to remove this person because they just don't like what he does. Now, it was one of those interesting things to see, but watching, it's great seeing the grassroots and all of it happening and all of the people rallying around him. But the loss shouldn't be an indication that he should run for president next time. That's not the takeaway I think we should be getting from this. They're
Yeah.
using his loss as it putting him on the national stage for a possible presidential run.
Correct.
And and
Correct.
I understand momentum. And I like Dave Smith and I think he's correct in that there is momentum. But if you get to be president in this country, you have to be allowed to be president of this country, don't you? Like to become
Yeah.
president.
Yeah.
They have to let you,
They have to let
right?
you. They being, and not that they're Bond villains or anything like that, but
Right. It's a
it's a machine. It's a system.
yeah,
It's a,
it it's
it's
baked
an
in.
institution. Right, it's
Yeah, it's
baked
baked
in,
into
right.
the institution, right?
And within that, it has its own incentive structures and so on. Again, not designed from the top down. It just happens to be what emerges when you have an institution that's permitted to and expected and legitimately, so-called legitimately, can violate the consent of innocent people. If you have a setup like that, what's going to come out the other end is going to be very unpredictable. So this happens to be one of those weird twists where you have somebody who kind of excites the libertarians. They get excited about it. Then he's made to lose, or he loses, however you want to interpret it, and then they're disappointed because maybe they thought he might win because they saw things that indicated he should have won, and then he doesn't win. It's for me, it's, since I've kind of been a red-pilled ANCAP for literally 50 years, this is just another one of those sine waves. Sine waves just go up and down, and this is just another one of those. So I guess maybe when you have that longer term experience or perspective, and you see the up and down, it's not surprising anymore that it happens. It's not surprising that a lot of people get enthusiastic. It's not as surprising that they get disappointed when it doesn't work. And it's also, unfortunately, not surprising that they get excited yet again when the next upward branch of that sine wave starts. I do have to ask
But is it a
eventually is,
memory thing, or is it just that we want to be part of the excitement, right? Do we kind of lie to ourselves a little bit to be part of it, something special? Do you think? Because like we continually find ourselves in this kind of secular, cyclical
uh,
kind of thing. We
yeah.
always follow that curve, to your point, and is almost pattern like, right? Where you and I can see is, oh yeah, this is upcoming.
Well, a pattern will persist if you're not identifying the root of the pattern, because then you're just going to repeat the same thing over and over again. So if a person really does deep down believe the myth of political authority, meaning it's okay for a certain group of people to have moral and legitimate legal authority over the rest of the population, even if it's not with their consent. If you think that's an okay setup, well, then you're going to bring that belief into a Thomas Massey run because that's the enthusiasm. Let's think, oh, he's our guy. He's the guy who's going to help us out of this mess. There's still that general mindset that someone else is sort of in charge of my life, and that's the guy I want. So essentially, it's a statist mindset, a cult mindset, an abused spouse mindset. This is the only way. I, since it's the only way, then I put all my chips in that way. And when it fails, I just find a reason to keep believing in it. That's the best I could do to kind of make sense of why they keep doing it. The other thing I literally thought of today, and this would be me psychoanalyzing, and I'm not a psychologist, so it's worth literally the crap under my my heels when I step in crap.
We're all pseudo
I,
psychoanalysts here.
I
It's
think
okay.
so. Yes, we're all like. But I was thinking how I was comparing it to how enthusiastic people get when they love sports. And they love sports strategizing in particular, right? Football strategies, boxing strategies, MMA strategies. And gosh darn, that is interesting, isn't it? The subtle little things that mean everything in strategic thinking. Strategic thinking is paramount in politics. If you really look at people who are talking about politics, they're loving it. They're loving that strategic thinking. This district has that many red, whatever, institution. This has that many, and if this guy wins, then that many constituents might be here, and he's advocating this, but that's a pressure group over there. To me, I want to put a bullet in my head when I hear that kind of talk. It bores me to tears. But the people who are enthusiastic about it, they love it in the same way that they love sports strategies.
It's like a
So
baseball statistician. It's the guys who
exactly,
like wins over replacement, all like the super nerd number
it's
guys, right?
everything. Yes, and
Totally.
and and
Demographics and
and it made me a little bit almost empathetic, I guess. So that I'm thinking, well, maybe they're just happy that they're getting themselves enmeshed in political debates and strategic thinking because their mind loves that stuff. And it isn't really that they think anything's going to change long term. It's just that they love the strategic thinking. So when Massey loses, well, that's just a new factor in that strategy that we have to leverage so that when he does run in 2028 for president, then there'll be a lot of, there'll be a movement and a groundswell, and they like thinking this way. Again, it
Hmm.
happens not to be what motivates me. I'm bored of that kind of stuff, and that's why I don't necessarily pay very detailed attention to current events. I pay attention to the general news, but the details to me are just irrelevant details that others put epic importance in, but I don't. So
That's
that might be my
interesting.
theory on why our team often gets excited.
Well, I mean, I thought you were going to go a different way with the sports analogy, just that you have a team to root for, right? I mean, we have that just
Right.
base part in us.
That's
But
tribal
I
thing.
love the insight that you have about the statistician people are like the scientists. They don't think about whether they should get that candidate elected. They just look about whether they can get that candidate elected,
Yeah.
right? Like that's their
There's
job. Get this person in this office. Okay, what do I need to do? What are my X's and O's to do that, right? And if you
right,
just
right.
look at it like that, you're doing logic and reason. All the manipulation of what that person's going to do with the power is out the window because all you're focused on, it's kind of like military. You're focused on the task of getting the job done, what it is, versus the ethics of it, right? Or the
I
morality
was
of it.
that's so interesting. I was speaking to a Vietnam vet just the other day. He was a Marine vet, and he was in at the very tail end when they were leaving Vietnam. And I had to ask the question. I said, I'm so curious. When you guys were essentially packing up and leaving, what did they tell you? How were they justifying that? Because when you went in, it was rah rah, hoorah, save the South Vietnamese from communism, which is an evil plague, that we must defeat the Russians or the Soviets at the time and the North Vietnam. Now we're leaving. How did they justify it to you, the on the ground soldiers? And his answer was they didn't. They gave us orders and we followed them. That's it. We always just follow orders. If they say pack up and leave, you pack up and leave because your sergeant says if you don't, he'll be on KP duty or whatever. And it's as simple as that. It's just a mindset. In this case of following orders, in the case of, say, a Massey run, it's just he's our guy, like you said.
Right. So Adam Heyman. You're familiar with Adam,
This
right?
is sure,
Yeah. So
sure.
he had a gentleman on. I don't know
Yes.
if you had him on, Dominic Scaracella, but he
Not yet.
wrote.
I'm looking to get,
Okay,
yeah,
I did a podcast with him, and he just to let you know, it's very similar. It's like cops killed Jesus. It's like, well, they did what they were told, right?
right,
And there's this
right.
book. It still haunts me because I couldn't even finish it. I do audiobooks, so I put it on and I listen to it, and it's a book called Ordinary Men, and it's about a German group in the late 1930s who were just like mid 30s who already they weren't idealized into the evil that they were about to commit, but they were just like a police regiment, normal dudes, normal guys who ended up doing the most atrocious things, and how they slowly got them to do it. And like they would have to get so drunk that they would hold the gun up to the guy's head and miss. Like literally, that's how drunk they were. I mean, it's just astounding what we would do. Like we say we wouldn't be a Nazi soldier. My grandfather was a Nazi soldier, and he also escaped East Germany. So what was he? A good guy or a bad guy? What was he? He was a guy that lived in a country that made decisions without his consent. That's what he was. He was
What
a
he was.
pawn, just like we all
Right.
are. So, Mark, how this is where I need you, man. This is where I need you. White, where's the white in this? Because I unfortunately lean to the dark because it's an 80-20 to me. I see 20% of us possibly in this place where we're waking up is like, okay, we're not going to vote ourselves out of this. Instead of putting the action into knocking on doors for a politician, what about starting a garden together? Or something. So white pill me, man. I want to hear your perspective because you had so much experience in this. I love it.
But I always start this by kind of giving the broad lesson to follow all the time, and that is You're going to find white pills only when you look at the long term, at the big picture. You are not going to find them in the short term. In fact, that's where the black pills live, in the immediate, in what's in front of our face. And what's in front of our face are things like, this disappointment people feel for Thomas Massey, or the atrocities in Gaza, or the war in Iran, or ICE, soldiers on the streets killing people. Those are black pills, and they are the immediate. And that's life. The things that are right in our face are the most obvious things in our face. So no, if you want to be white pilled and look at current events and says, where are the white pills in that? You're not going to find them. But when you zoom out, that's where they start to appear, if you kind of train yourself to look for them, because they are there in trends and in long-term perspectives. So in something like the Massey thing, you could say, well, look at this. A whole enormously large group of libertarians got disappointed. And now they're talking about, oh, he said he's going to run for something in 2028, so that's a reason to be enthusiastic again. If you really zoom out, what you're going to see is that a certain percentage of those libertarians, they got disillusioned this time. This was it for them. Now, the same thing, by the way, can be said for Trump. A lot of libertarians got behind Trump, and a lot of libertarians were disappointed in Trump. Some of them just turned off to politics for good. That was it. That was the last straw. Not most, but some. The some, that's the white pill, because those people are probably never coming back. Same thing with Massey. Most of them are going to go right back in and follow him and support him if he does decide to run. Some of them won't. You won't hear about them. Why? Because they're quiet. They detached themselves from politics. So in that case, so in that sense, a white pill is really more of the few that are permanently disillusioned. And that's the best you could take away from such a local event like that.
Well, when you have the power of the state and just the years of manufacturing your consent, right? Taking a couple percentage to peel off is a victory. So if we can peel off a little bit, a few here and there every time one of these things happen, these events happen, we're good. I just look at the bigger influencers. Like I I was blessed. Now paid the money, but I went to the Ron Paul barbecue last year.
Right.
And a number of the people that were at the Ron Paul barbecue who I had the pleasure of meeting went to Kentucky to do this, to fight for Massey, which I love. I think that's absolutely amazing. But it's like, you guys have been here long enough to know that, is that the solution, or is that like the world? To your point, is it maybe just the interest of, that's how they like it? Like, just like the statistician likes to handle this part, this is more of the social slash, groundswell aspect, or something where it maybe just fits a personality, and that's why these people stay in groups the way they do. I'm trying to think of different ways. I just trying to come from different angles.
Yeah. And that is said too, that the influencers, meaning the libertarian influencers, the ones with the bigger audiences, they at least a lot of them stay on this. They stay on this political solution thing. Now, for some of them, it's just to spread the message. They just feel that maybe they don't feel Thomas Massey really will win, but because from their perspective, in their analysis, in their strategic thinking, they think, well, at least it's a soapbox. It's covered on a news story, therefore a lot of people are exposed to it. Um, we've used that excuse for 50 years, and it hasn't worked. So it's not
The
really gonna.
message, the message.
Yeah.
Okay, let me share. I'll share a little moment. There's a gentleman named Barry Hess, and I can't help it, but he ran for either Senate, governor, or Congress or something in Arizona every 2 or 4 years. Okay, so this guy, in my opinion, is a narcissistic guy who needs the what is it, the approval of others to feel some kind of self-worth. That's where I'm at. Okay, now he goes, it's just about spreading the message, and I'm like, dude, stop with the message spreading. You can spread the message without having to be part of this. The message is better spread outside of the system, because that's what we're trying to get people to do, right? So with that said, what are some of the solutions that you offer for people to say, okay, instead of knocking on the door, take 5 minutes and start this project, and this project will lead down the road to some kind of freedom, whether it's some kind of debt freedom or mental freedom or some kind of, you know what I mean, some kind of thing that allow, that you can stack onto, because you're not going to get it all free at once, right? You have to slowly get gain your freedoms as you can get them, as
Right,
they're
and I'm
available.
glad that I'm really glad you brought that up because what you just said is a general topic that I'm seeing more and more and more of in our general space that I never saw in the past, and that's a real white pill. Namely, a greater percentage of discussions that deal with essentially ignoring, not ignoring, but disregarding the fact that the state is there and making a mess of things and even making it hard for us personally. That's sort of like, okay, that's bad news, but we can't do anything about it in the now. So create alternatives, create parallel institutions, create parallel economies, agorism, parallel currencies, right? Private currencies, DeFi or crypto, whatever word you want to use for that. The actual experiments that are going on in the world, like Morrison and Prospera, the various free city projects that are actually happening right now and are not amazingly descending into cannibalism. Gee, I thought that when people were free and left to their own and there was no real state intervention, we cannibalized each other. That's what I learned. That's what you learned. But look, Prospera is
I've
there.
heard
It's
that a
about
lot.
7 years old, and there was no cannibalism that I know of. Oh, that puts the lie to the idea that people can't self-govern. Those parallel institutions and economies and so on, they are proving that statism isn't an absolute necessity for human beings. So what you just said, what can you do? Well, there's a lot you can do. You find what resonates with you as a parallel. Like, so if you want to just trade with your neighbors, trade your services, uh, trade in crypto or whatever, just pay in cash rather than, online or digitally, or invent things, get involved in 3D printing, whatever it is that interests you and resonates with you, but essentially, creates these parallel institutions. That's one way. So as you can see, that's not really an activist or messaging type of thing. That's not persuading others to overcome the myth of statism, which there's nothing wrong with doing that. But we have been trying to do that for 50 years and it hasn't worked too well. There are probably methods that work better than others. But if you're not feeling enthusiastic about that anymore, just try doing parallel economies that bypass the state. And, I would never sit here and say, do illegal things that are going to get you in jail. Try your best to, do something that's still within their rules so that they don't put you in a cage. But that's one way to do it. It's not the only way that I suggest, but it's a way that resonates with, I'm noticing more and more people.
I like that. And that's kind of, I've come up with kind of a phrase that's kind of be the liberty you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
You have to do it. You just, I mean, we can talk about it or blue in the face, but you just have to do stuff that, you know what I mean? That's not restrictive in some way. And then,
Now,
and then through that
yeah.
proof, it shows that it works. And then they go, oh, well, I guess that's not a big deal. So we can let that
Well,
go or something.
plus, the bigger it is, meaning the more grand it is of a project, as it succeeds, and again, like these places are succeeding, some of these free cities that are out there, it also attracts investment types and entrepreneurs because if they see that there's profits to be made in these experimental communities, well, they're going to gravitate over to that. They're going to bring capital to that. So it isn't just, growing vegetables and selling it to your neighbor. That's fine. But this thing scales. The bigger the project, the better, the more money and capital comes into it, and that attracts even more people. And none of this is ideological. This is all practical, on the ground, for profit or, the type of projects that benefit people in terms of goods and services. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's sweat
that's
equity.
definitely a
I mean,
way.
they're just working.
Correct.
They're
Now,
working on
now,
they're working on liberty. So.
right, right. Now, part of that too, though, part of the overall discussion is also you could talk about the ideological side, and that would be the side that says, well, what is it that brings us to a free society exactly? And this is very interesting. I've noticed that in all the years I've been following this movement, you actually don't hear many people talk in clear terms, in which you would think you'd get clear terms out of people who tend to be nerdy and who think and like to think through things. But they don't describe in clear terms how they think a certain messaging strategy will literally causally lead or help lead to a free society. It's always vague. Well, you got to tell more people. You got to spread the message. What does that mean? How does spreading a message literally change? At least give us some kind of framework by which you think telling other people spreads your message in a way that's going to affect change. How? See, ask the
Hmm.
how and who and when. They never answer these questions. It's
Right.
always vague. So that would suggest that a lot of the reason they're in it is because of the enthusiasm, perhaps, of you like the ideas, you get um, you get community with like-minded people, and that feels good. You can vent about things that frustrate you, like spreading a message that no one hears, so you can talk to a fellow traveler and, oh, they hear you. So maybe a lot of it's psychological because they're certainly not giving clear causal reasons why the strategy would lead to a free society. And to
Right.
be honest, I don't think there is. I actually don't think messaging per se is the
It's not.
causal. It's not.
It
I want
actually
your
is
thoughts on
action.
that. How do you think it is
It's
not, and what do you
absolutely
think might
action.
be?
So I'll give you an example. This is
Yeah.
exactly where I'm at right now.
Okay.
I've thought about this multiple times. I live in like a little like a villas complex. It's maybe 20 or 30 homes in like it's not gated or anything, but they're all built by the same developer, right? So it's like this one
Right.
two streets that cross. And I'm
Right.
like, I don't know my neighbors. And I'll wave, I'll say maybe wave as they go by, but I don't know their names. I don't know anything. So my first action item is like you just said, is like spread the message. Like, well, spread the message to your point. How? It's like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print up a piece of paper that says, hi, I'm here. This is my address. We're all in this neighborhood. I love to get to know you. Can we all, and Sunday at noon, can we all meet at the little greens area in the middle where where the mailboxes are, and we can all just get to know each other. Start there. Just stand out and stick a piece on every door. That's where I'm going to start. It's the smallest thing I can do. I'm going to walk. I take a walk every day anyway, so I might as well just do it while I'm taking a walk, right? So that's my goal, is to have maybe 3 people meet there the first time and then maybe 5 the next, and do something like that and just get to know and build a tight group here, maybe do a neighborhood watch and then get together with the next neighborhood, because I have a feeling things are going to be, we're going to need to start getting, communities pretty soon here. I just have a sense that something ominous is coming. I don't know. Community, it has been lost, and I think it needs to be recaptured.
Yeah, and I think depending on where you are and what kind of community you're in, that that that
100%.
is. So, for example, if you'll notice that if you do what you did, which was reach out, start talking to neighbors. And I'm not saying about libertarianism or anything like that, but just, the
No,
get-togethers, things like that.
literally
You
not
know,
about spreading the message. That is the liberty, is that I'm getting to know my people and getting to build the
exactly.
community, right?
Right, right, right. And doing that, it resonates with people. It reminds me of the teenage junior high school dances. That it would start and the floor is empty, the music's going, and nobody wants to be the first. And once some couple gets out there and starts dancing, and then that gives everyone permission. Neighborhoods, communities tend to be like that, especially when they're brand new and everyone kind of moved in about the same time. It's like there's a little uneasiness, but the first people who kind of get in there and say, "Hey, I baked this cake. Here you go." That breaks the ice. And so what you were doing, you were saying, "Hey, maybe we should get a neighborhood watch together. And maybe a few people can volunteer." Then you start learning, oh, this guy likes doing this and that guy likes doing that. So that's sort of the beginning of it. Then you throw a party or two, and then that kind of loosens things up. That's how communities build from the ground up. And again, like you said, it has nothing to do with spreading a liberty message. That's just living the liberty right there between communities. Then if something does hit the fan, whether it's major or minor, these people are already, they're texting you, "Hey, you okay? I noticed your car isn't there," whatever it is. And you get that only because you built that already from in the past. So yeah, I'm so in favor of those kind of approaches.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it. So what kind of things would you say you would do in your personal life that is just liberty living? I'm sure you work outside the banking system, for example, and have other means or something. But what are some things you do that are outside of the normal system that people might be able to look at and go, "Oh, that's something to look at or think about for them."
Well, I'm retired now a couple of years, and uh, we're getting used to retirement in the sense of, oh, okay, this is your free time now. This is your reward time. And that's one reason I was able to start up the podcast was because it takes a little bit of time. It's not like crazy, but it takes time and effort in the sense of you got to kind of commit to it and then, make it your hobby or interest or whatever and learn what you need to do. This freed up the time for me to do that. So in my sense, it's literally the Substack essays I did and the ultimately the podcast was my little contribution, my little project of doing that. I don't know that that resonates with others necessarily, either as a consumer of it or as a producer of it, but that's what I did, and it wasn't that hard. I'm comfortable with tech, but I'm not crazy, expert at it. So I found the things that I'm comfortable with. So for me, that's what worked. Is that sure that kind of a project for me. Um, and besides that, it's just stuff me and my wife do now. We try to travel when we can, explore the new area because we're only in this area of Florida about 3 years now, so we're still kind of branching out. So that's the best I can answer that, but we are in this
Yeah.
transitional phase too of getting used to retirement.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's dox you. Can we get your address? We need cross streets and
Yeah,
everything.
sure.
You
Yeah,
just give
that's
us a
all we need.
satellite picture. So
Yeah, exactly. The Google
we need
Maps.
half your. We don't need your social security number. The guy was on Tucker said he can get it off the internet without any problem.
I believe that. I believe that. But really, the
Oh, it's great.
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. The perspective.
No, I was only going to say the white pill perspective really does help because when you look at the long term, that really, at least for me, it brings sort of I don't want to say wisdom because wisdom sounds a little too haughty, but the perspective allows the black pills to you can kind of take them. You could take the hits now because you see it as just yet another example of what statism is. And I figure as long as the state doesn't completely end us, which I know they can do, I know they can start a nuclear war, I know they can do terrible things. But as long as they don't do that, we are really on a good track here. Well, this is not a black pill perspective for the long term. Yes, in the short term, all these terrible things are happening. But if you can kind of get a long term perspective, then at least for me, I'm living in these years where I'm not worrying about that stuff anymore. I kind of look at the state now as an asteroid coming from, you know, from outer space. Can it happen? Yes, an asteroid can kill us and end us. Can the state do something so heinous that it sends us back to the Stone Age or creates some kind of civil war? Absolutely, it can do that. But that's like an asteroid. It's unpredictable. It's not 100% likely, but it is possible. But finally, I can't do anything about that. So while I do pay attention to current events, I don't worry about that. It's going to happen. It's going to happen to all of us. So what do I focus on? What I focus on are the white pills that strongly suggests that we are on target for a free society. We're headed there. It's happening. And unlike the libertarians who speak in vague generalities, the white pills I dispense, and I really commit to this, Mark, so much on my podcast. When I dispense a white pill, I can demonstrate it through empirical evidence, logic, and sound reasoning. Not just, oh, here's a white pill and be happy because I told you to be happy, or I'm a motivational speaker and I want you to feel good. No, no, no. It's not that kind of white pill. It's the kind that if you look at the chart here, or if you look at the evidence on the ground, you'll see there's a reason for hope. And I want you to feel that too because you can see evidence. So, that's sort of the rounding out of why I do the podcast.
I love it. And I will say it is work. Trust me, I know it's work. But you did a 23-part series on the myth of authority. So let's not kid ourselves. You put in the effort. You put in the sweat equity for sure on that. So what's interesting is you have a perspective that you have. I have experience that tells me otherwise. I told you I'm crazy, right? I told you I had a near death experience and
She told me about that. It's awesome.
whoop de do. Yeah. So like
Mhm.
my issue is I saw the end here. Like I actually had the vision of it. I'm sent here to watch this, to observe, because this is a timeline in which, or whatever dimension, whatever you want to call it, this is one of the branches that's not going forward. From now, once again, this is just what I cobbled together from my perceptions through my filters. And I've got negative general going in. I'm German. You know what I mean? I'm already looking at what's broken, not what's working. You know what I mean? I'm always looking at what can get fixed. So, well, I'm happy about that because at least I'm anti-war because of that. But my concern is your perspective is so beautiful, and I love that you share it because I will share mine, but I will say I admire yours, and I try to. It's hard because I think sometimes we're wired differently, and our experiences do shape how we perceive, right, and our filters. I look at, yes, it is a low percentage, but if that happens, what's the devastating effect is it's like 100% fatality kind of thing. So even though it's a low
Right.
percentage, the you know what I mean, even though it's a higher percentage of hurricanes and tornadoes and whatever, the percentage of fatalities way less and way less devastating, maybe to property, but not to life, right? Which is what you and I ultimately, how can we be liberty is to be alive, right? You have to be alive before you can be free. So it's just one of those kind of things in a chain that I perceive. Now I just love the way you do it. So in that vein, share with me a general white pill that you've perceived over the last couple of years, maybe an epiphany you've had or something that
Mhm.
you can share with our audience, because I really I admire just how positively you see it. And when
I
I'm done speaking with you, I'm on a cloud for a bit because I'm really like, okay, what can I do? And I really do take a mini step toward the white. You know what I mean? So
That's so
I'd love
cool.
for you to share any
So
thoughts.
I've been challenged by some of our fellow travelers in this last year. They're aware of the 23 episode Myth of Authority series. And this dispenses, wow, I never counted how many white pills are actually in that, but I can promise you it's dozens. But they said, yeah, 23 episodes, that's a lot to get through. So can you consolidate it down? So I've tried to meet that challenge now, and you've posed it too. So I'm going to try to consolidate it right down to like a couple of paragraphs. And I'll tell you, that's hard to do because when you do that, you're not really getting the foundation. So a person can think, oh, he's just asserting white pills. So as I go through this, just understand this is all backed up. This is all evidence and reason and logic based. This is not something I just pulled out of my backside. So,
Right up my alley. I love logic, reason.
and
This is how we focus.
this
These are
is
our
it.
people.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Are you observing, certainly in these last, let's say, 5, 10 years, that the state is having a harder time propagandizing? Is that something that you've
Yes.
noticed? Okay. So
Yes.
if you've
And I
noticed
can
it, uh
yeah.
huh. Go ahead.
I just have an
I
idea
can.
where it's social media. Basically, they use social media to create all the revolutions around the world. And then when it came home to roost, now they've realized that it can be used against them, and that's what they're trying to fight now. So yeah,
That's
but
right.
yes, that is what's happening.
That's right.
They're not able to keep the lid on anything anymore the way
And
they used to.
Dave Smith, and people criticize him here and there, but the one thing he has done is point out that we're in a new media landscape. And he has specifically mentioned how propaganda is failing, it's losing its efficacy uh, for the state. Okay, what disappointed me was he got that far, he said that, and then he stopped and he went on with his episode because it was just an aside. It was one of those 5 minute things he happened to be commenting on. And I was like, oh my God, that's the launching off point of the most astounding white pill you can want. But he didn't take it that far because, that's not his interest right now or whatever. He perhaps hasn't thought of it yet. Propaganda is the essential, fundamental pillar that holds up the belief in political authority. It, virtually the whole world, except us few ANCAPs, have in their mind this belief in political authority. They believe it's okay for a group of men, if they follow the right rituals of voting or whatever it may be, to rule over us and be our moral leaders. Okay, that's the myth of political authority. The pillar of that is propaganda. It's the only way that that myth can sustain itself. And by the way, it's a very delicate balance because if just a little bit of skepticism infects the myth of political authority, it's game over because it's like a ding in your windshield. It might start small, but that what's happening after a few months. It's going to be big. The myth of authority is the very root of the state itself. When we think of the state, we think of SWAT teams and tanks and flags and big buildings with marble columns and judges. But all that are physical attributes. They're the outward effect of the root cause, which is the myth of political authority. So at the root is the myth. The embodiment is the state. When we hate the state, we don't always think that we really need to hate the myth of authority because that's the root. It's the cause. If we think of cause and effect, you don't get the state without the ubiquitous myth. But the myth only stands on propaganda. That's it. That's it.
Okay. This is perfect. I wasn't going to share this. Oh, do you have another point before we continue?
Oh, I could keep
Please,
going,
please.
so you take over for a while.
Okay, this is perfect. I had pulled a bunch of clips just to kind of mess around to make it a white pill Wednesday. I was just pulling some stuff up. I had this one, but as I looked at them, I'm like, these are really, because to your point, they're more current event, they're more short term, and they're more black pill. They don't look at the big term. But you just spoke of propaganda. You tell me if this one flies. I'm going to share this one with us. Let's see. Let's see if this one flies. It's like one of my favorite ones. Oh my gosh, it's great. Here we go.
Reports of a potential threat to our nation from Cuba. Axios is reporting the communist island nation is buying attack drones from Russia and Iran. So far, some 300 drones. And the communist government of Cuba recently began discussing plans to potentially use those drones to attack U.S. targets, including Guantanamo Bay and possibly Key West, Florida.
Come on. Come on. This is on Fox. I can't.
Now, here we go. This is brought up the absolute perfect example of what I was saying. Step back. Let's take our mind and zoom out from what we just watched. I heard more or less what she said. It sounds like there's a threat from Cuba and there's other people who are involved. Blah blah blah. Right? You know what I saw? The first thing you probably saw me zoom in there. What news feed was that exactly? I couldn't see. I had to zoom in. It wasn't
It's
CNN.
Fox.
It was Fox.
Fox News.
Yeah, it was Fox. The first question that hit my head: who's watching that? How many people are actually watching what I just saw? I know it's propaganda. The question is, how many people actually got propagandized by that? Yes, they issued the propaganda. They engaged in the propaganda. You could be yelling out on the street all you want, but if people aren't listening to you, they aren't getting propagandized. That's the myth of authority eroding because they're not hearing it. Now, I'm not saying no one heard that. I know exactly who heard that. The boomers, the people who are tuned into Fox. And we, some of the nerds who like watching some of that stuff, but we're not propagandized by it. We laugh at it like you did. I assume you found it comical.
I am still laughing. I can't believe that Harris Faulkner and what's his name? Jesse Wooders. Those two are just disgusting. Oh yeah, Jesse Waters. Did you see the one where he said he's giving Iran an out? He's giving Trump's giving Iran an out. Sure, Jess. And you're right. You're right. It is the boomers. And this goes back to the Massey point. Those are the ones who currently vote though. And they vote in droves and they believe things that lie to them. And that's fine, but they are aging out. To your point, anyone under 50 years old was like plus 80 towards Massey. and everyone
Right.
over 50 or something was, or over, it's, the demographics are there. The question is, are we going to get to that age? And the thing is, though, these new kids coming up want to use the state, though, to do good. And that doesn't work. Just like you and I know, Mark, that the state doesn't do good. It's not a good doing thing. It's not designed for good.
Right. Right. And in
So
any
how
kind,
do we,
yeah. Right.
pendulum through? Like, this is me, neocon, went to the libertarians for one cycle, saw the BS that happened with Chase Oliver and the other thing, that one election with Rechtenwald and all the weirdness that happened with McCardle. Okay. The ones that gave Trump the election, they had to get somebody who wouldn't take votes from Trump. I totally get. And then I went, oh, the the humans are the same in every party regardless of the party, so the party doesn't matter. You can't get that human condition out. And that's where the beauty of the people that we read, the people that we follow, the Rothbardians, I mean, they all knew about human condition, the Locks and everybody, right? Like, they knew about the human condition. And that's the brilliance of these people. That's what I always look towards.
Right. Right. One of our mistakes, and every time I come off as being critical of libertarians, I promise you, I was directly within that group. I was right there. So I'm criticizing my former self just as harshly. It doesn't even have to be harshly. I don't know that we could have thought any other way. And one of
Right. I think
those
we can just reflect and say, look, this is what we were, but we learned from that. That's
we
that,
learned
you
exactly.
know.
And one of the enormous lessons that libertarians have not learned yet, and it's okay because it takes time to learn a big lesson that kind of hits you hard in the head, but this is one of them, is that what it takes to get from here to there, and this is the mistake. I'm not saying this is what it is. This is the mistaken belief by us, former me, that what it takes to get us from here and from here to there is to get other people to be at the place of skepticism that we are, at our pure, unadulterated, nice, 100% solid cup of red pilled purity. Only that gets us there. Well, if that's what you think, then it ain't happening because we will never get any significant percentage of any group to be as red pilled as us. The white pill is that is utterly unnecessary, 100% unnecessary. If we make more red pilled, full on cups like us, great. I'm not against that. It's not
Right. I think it is a
talk.
wiring thing. I think it's like to your point, it's like a
Yes,
certain
yes.
percentage of us only just see through it. And once you see it, you just can't unsee it. Many just don't have that tool in their toolbox.
Well, and it's also there was no other way to look at it. Let me take you back in
True.
time to pre-internet. Follow me back to the time pre-internet. Were you a libertarian pre-internet?
Yes, I knew of Ron. I mean, I knew like New World Order stuff, Ron Paul and
As
stuff, but
ish.
I wasn't like living libertarian. I would have been more Republican.
So none of us back then had a crystal ball, if you could believe that. So we never knew there would ever be an internet. So to us, from our perspective, we knew vaguely that what you have to do is message. Why? Because you'd like to get the world a little more skeptical of the state so that somehow, we don't know how, but we didn't know how, but somehow that creates a skeptical enough environment so that the state has a hard time of it and the state would eventually wither away. That was sort of the very vague causal role we felt we played. And of course, and again, we were not wrong to think this, who's going to do that work except us? There is nobody else who is already fully over the myth of authority and is fully skeptical. It has to be us messaging. So we saw it as a very, very much uphill battle, but the only battle to fight because, again, how else will you increase social skepticism of the state? Okay, fair enough. The internet came along, and in the early years of it, late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of us looked at that and said, this is really cool. We now have a way to enhance our messaging. We aren't just going to make pamphlets or do letters to the editors or talk to our uncle at Thanksgiving dinner. Now we had platforms where we could write essays or make a website and sort of advertise our ideas, and we were excited. And here's what we saw. We saw the internet as a supplement or an enhancement to us. We were still running the race. We were still the only ones running the race. But the internet was this, booster for us. And that was a major shift in our mind.
Well, it was kind of the
Uh-huh.
it was the printing press, right? I mean, it was really similar to the printing press. It allowed you to get the
Exactly.
message in an email or
Right.
something to anybody whose email address you had, and it didn't cost you anything, and with a push of a
Exactly right.
button, and yeah,
And that's how we saw
absolutely,
it.
it
And it
was a
was a true
tool. Yeah.
shift. Right. But a true shift. I mean, this was big. Here's what's happened. In the last, I'm going to tag it at about 5-7 years, something like that. A new shift has happened. We are in a completely new environment. This is the white pill here. Get ready for it. And the libertarians mostly have not grasped this, but we are in a new place. The shift is, look at it this way. The internet is not only merely a supplement to us, it has taken over the job from us. We thought we were running the race alone. That's no longer true. The internet has joined us. We thought it was a single race we were running. It was a relay race. We were running the first leg with the baton. The internet has taken the baton and is running ahead at technological speed. Let me explain how. What was the Liberty Communicators, what's our advantage? We deliver a full-on cup of skepticism, pure, 100% red pill. What's our disadvantage? We can't scale that. We cannot scale it. We will never, ever, 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 ever times
Yeah,
1,000
because
hit more.
everything's skeptical, so you can't scale that. You can't. It would always be zero. We just wouldn't believe anything.
Plus, there's only a few of us ever. We're a small
Right.
percentage. Our voice is not heard. It will never, ever be heard. So that full cup we can deliver can only go to a few. The internet has matured to the point where it is fitting like a glove as a complement to that. Namely, by decentralizing information flow, it has allowed content to be so available to so many billions of people that it is diluting the efficacy of propaganda. Not that people are becoming ANCAPs or anything like that. They are simply spending so much more of their time by their choice consuming and often producing content that is not status, that is not propaganda. So they spend literally, mathematically, less of their waking time being propagandized. If propaganda is whiskey, the internet is water. And it is diluting it. And we know that whiskey clouds your mind really good when it's in its purest form, but when it's really watered down, it fogs your mind less. That's what's happening to propaganda. So the internet's disadvantage is it can only deliver little thimblefuls of skepticism simply by making people marginally less propagandized, so marginally more skeptical. But its advantage, it does it at scale. Billions of people are getting a thimbleful more of skepticism every single month because they are consuming non-propaganda. That's going to fill that social skepticism bucket way faster than we libertarians ever could have. So it's a partner now with us in that when we communicate, we can actually red pill individual people if we're successful, but never at scale. The internet is skepticizing billions of people with just a little bit of skepticism at scale, continually and sustainably. This is going to
It's
erode.
like it's a slow. It's a campaign at this point. It's becoming
Right,
more of a
not
campaign.
top down, of
So
course. It's a natural,
right, just
organic,
slow drips
emergent
over time,
result.
and it becomes
Exactly.
cultural. Then at that point, right, over time, that then
Exactly.
becomes culture. I mean,
And you can
I
actually
look at
see
language. Those alpha kids, I can't speak that glazing and glossy, and I'm sitting there like I'm what? Anyway, go ahead, please.
But that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So if you think of a beehive, for example, a beehive is an emergent phenomenon. Why? Because no one bee has the knowledge or ability to create the hive, and yet the little bee does its little thing. It just behaves according to its nature, and collectively what emerges is this fantastic organized beehive and the honey and all that, even though it's never planned. Well, the state government, that's the emergent phenomenon when an entire population is propagandized into the myth of political authority. But as that erodes, which is happening right now in real time, the state cannot have the same kind of pillar under it, and it erodes with time. We're at the early stages of it, so the evidence for that is only now coming out. But the principle behind it, the growing skepticism, that's a train that's on its way. That's an avalanche crashing down on the state. And if you were to pin me down, I would guess that maybe a decade from now, that'll be super obvious, whereas now you have to kind of look for the signs. A couple decades, you're going to see it's going to be steamrolling. We don't have much farther to go, but I would say that's the white pill direction we're headed.
I have 2 points and I hope I remember both. So let's start with propaganda. There was a book titled Propaganda, written by a gentleman named Edward Bernays. Everyone in the chat, look up Edward Bernays, Bernays. He was the nephew of Carl Jung, I think.
Believe so.
And he basically coined the term propaganda, Banana Republic. He did freedom torches to double the smoking, double the amount of smokers by getting women to smoke. I mean, this guy did it all. So what I also recommend, there's a BBC documentary. It's a 4-hour documentary. You can watch it in 4 parts or the full 4-hour thing. On YouTube, it's free. It's called The Century of the Self. And it is about Edward Bernays and propaganda. And Mark, I would ask that you watch that. And we did a breakdown of each of the 4 parts with my other co-hosts and just talked about it even as long as the parts were, even double as long, because it makes you think about all these things. But it's amazing how propagandized we all have been, and it just opens your eyes to so much. The second part of that is where I knew I would forget. Gosh darn it, you were talking about anyway, let's see. I guess waking up is where were we? Now I don't know. Go ahead. I'm sure it'll come to me. But welcome everyone in the chat as well. So
to me, when I think about propaganda, that work is interesting because it really breaks down the psychology of it and how it works and why it works. But I go back to this new paradigm we're in now, which is brand new. You can propagandize all you want, but if people aren't paying attention as much to it because they're not watching Fox News, right? They're doing chess videos, or they're doing auto videos, or they're doing cat videos, or they're producing they're not spending the time getting propagandized, then the propagander, the person engaged in it, is kind of just a voice in the wind. It's sort of like on Batman, Arkham Asylum, right? The Joker's in prison there, they're yelling and they're very important and all this, but no one on the outside is really paying attention to that, so it's not getting anywhere. So you can yell all you want. You can believe you're Abraham Lincoln in an insane asylum, but no one's going to make you the president of the United States because they know that you're insane. Well, propaganda works when you have the belief in political authority because you convince yourself that, that really is an important person trying to get power over me, and I certainly have to give him power over me because I believe that that's the right thing to do and it's legitimate. Right, because you bought the propaganda. Over time, as you lose that fog, not because you're an ANCAP, not because you're studying anything, not because your libertarian friend convinced you, but because you're on the internet and you simply aren't getting propagandized as much because you're consuming so much other content that incrementally your skepticism grows. You don't see it as much in one given person because this is a trend that takes, a couple of decades, I think, to play out. Nonetheless, it's an unstoppable trend because, as you said, the most propagandized amongst us are aging out. the boomers and the older Gen X's. Who does that leave?
That was my
Well, less.
yeah, that
Right.
was my second point. Yeah, that was my second point was it's the AI stuff during this last 10 to 20 years of these people aging out. They just believe what they see. I mean, they actually thought Thomas Massey was in a extramarital affair with two other women, regardless of like how it was, because they made an AI video. You know what I mean? They said Thomas Massey was too old. And once again, I think it is actually a good thing that Thomas Massey was not reelected. I think I think we need to act and stop. Liberty acts, it doesn't vote. And we need to remove this, like the hope thing is only, it just kicks the can down the road. I think hope is a kick the can down the road thing. It's great if we have hope together and like actually have it turned into action or something, but that's a side point. But these people believe the AI stuff that's going on, right? So until that happens, what the problem of that is 50 and under, no one's going to believe anything they see anymore. And that actually plays into the propagandist hands because no one will even believe truth when it comes and spits them in the face. Because we barely believe truth now because we're propagandized so much. And how do I perceive your white pill for that? If you could help me perceive that. Am I making sense?
Of course. And
Okay.
the answer to that is sort of comes from our own experience of when something isn't exactly right, say in a market, business environment or wherever, there's usually people who say, oh, there's a money-making opportunity because people need whatever it is that's missing or lacking in a market, right? Something doesn't work well. People say, oh, there's a profit opportunity. All right, well, you just described a problem, which is a valid problem. AI comes along. At first, everybody believes everything they see because we're trained to believe videos and, hell, it just happened in front of my eyes. But very quickly, that turned around and people said, oh, wait a minute, that could be AI. That could be fake. So now more and more people realize, okay, fake is possible on video. So that's good because they're a little more skeptical. What you mentioned is the potential. I don't know if it's a certainty, but it's certainly a potential that it springs the other way. People don't believe anything, even when it's true. I personally don't think it'll go that route, but it could, and let's assume it does.
And I
Okay,
only say that because my human nature and reaction is that we are pendulum swingers and we never govern within the middle. We govern through the middle as we pendulum. We saw how quickly the MAGA movement became what it became all of a sudden and what's happening, right?
which is a
So once
pendulum
again, it's
swing.
more of just human nature of the pendulum swinging, overcorrecting always. We always overcorrect.
Exactly. So,
But please, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So suppose it did overcorrect to the point where now people aren't believing anything. To me, that's a market need right there. There's a business opportunity. What is the business opportunity? Well, finding a way to validate truth.
That the
Now,
truth,
easy for me to say
but not
that,
be a
but
fact checker.
right, but and yeah, exactly. I don't want to give the impression that I'm saying, oh, the traditional fact check. No, no, no. I'm not
Right.
giving the
No,
solution
I
to
know what
that.
you're saying.
I'm just illustrating that it's a market need. Gee, we need a way, the, the world needs a way to truly validate something so that when we see it, we say, yeah, that's solid. Now, I don't know how that would work, but that would certainly be an entrepreneurial opportunity, wouldn't it? Okay, well, the market has a really good tendency to deliver on things when there's a market need for them. So I would assume the market will fill that need too. Figure out some interesting way, maybe technological, maybe reputational, I don't know, that helps people to more know that a particular example of video or whatever it may be, audio, is actually true or is actually false. So some falsifiable way of verifying something. So yeah, so the best answer I could give is the market is very likely to provide something if that need arises at all. And I don't worry about things like that. So there you go. I think that might be one way it could resolve itself.
I love that perspective. So and once again, I I have kind of found myself to kind of be the mirror where I reflect back the worst in people, I guess, if I can. And it's not to attack them in any way, it's just to show like we're all flawed. And I look at myself trust me, I hate myself so much. There's nothing anyone could say to me that would be like hurt me more than I like attack myself when I do stuff. I literally have a devil on my shoulder yelling at me all day going, you are a piece of crap. It's unbelievable. But that notwithstanding, what else we have, Mark? You were so kind to be a guest. We're an hour in. Is there anything you'd like to share, either about your podcast or about a topic that you wanted to discuss before we call it a night? I'm just so grateful we got to share this, because it's great seeing you, because you've always, once again, I admire the way you try to you inspire through a reframing of perspective, and I really appreciate that. I'm grateful. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I do appreciate having me on. Like I said, I really do try to infuse what I do with as much evidence as I can and logic and reason. I use a little bit of a metaphor or analogy to try to bring it home when I talk about white pills, and I'll use it here just so I can illustrate it better. Imagine you have a child, a little toddler, and they are a victim of a disease or virus, and the doctors have no idea what it is. You've brought them to the ER. They are scratching their heads, but all they do know is that your child is not going to make it. This thing is going to take them out, and their little immune system can't handle it. Now, that's a pretty black pilling situation. And then imagine that your friend in the waiting room with you puts his arm around you and says, "Don't worry, everything's going to be fine. I want you to have a positive perspective here, okay? Look on the bright side. Think of the glass half full." Now, if you're like me, you'll appreciate their enthusiasm, you'll appreciate their positivity, but it's sort of cold comfort because they're wanting to give you hope, like the hope of Thomas Messi winning, but it's not grounded on anything. It's just hope for hope's sake. Hope as a motivational speaker would try to give you hope. Now the doctor comes in. He says to you, "Great news. Your child's immune system has kicked in. Here's the lab test. We don't know what did it. We didn't do anything, but everything's looking good. We're not out of the woods, but everything's positive. What do you think, Dad?" And you say, "Well, doctor, I know your heart's in the right place, but it's cold comfort to me because I have no reason for hope." Now, I think the doctor would say, "Yeah, there's reasons right here. Do you want to look at
Right.
it?
He's okay. 98.6.
Can I draw your attention to that?" "Yeah, but doctor, it's your smiling face you're wanting me to believe." No. It's not my positivity. It's not my being positive. Can I kind of get you to look here? And you just don't do it. I've ran into that problem with my podcast. I have kind of a lot of feedback that says, "Boy, you're such a positive guy, but I just don't agree with you." And I guess I want to say, then show me where I'm wrong. Then debate me. Give me the
Right.
reasons why my empirical, logical evidence fail. I'm open to it. I will close the podcast down if you can show the counter evidence. And so far, I haven't gotten it. I'm not saying it's not out there. I could be dead wrong. But I want my fellow travelers to have hope, not because it's a positive message, but because the evidence and reason is there. The trends are there. Propaganda is failing, and propaganda is what holds up the state. Therefore, what's holding up the state is failing in real time
by the
in front of
transitive
us.
relation. If you ever get someone to debate you, I would love to be the moderator. So please let me know if you find someone. I'm happy to moderate.
We'll look out for that. That's great.
That'd be something
great
I'll
idea.
just, because it has nothing to do with whether I agree with you. I want your perspective because it's different. It has nothing to do with agreement. It has to do with the exchange of ideas. And this is something I think this is what brought me to this is I love talking about possibilities and what are the probabilities and what are the percentages. We don't know what they are, but that's the whole point, is playing in the sandbox of ideas so that that's actually what my white pill is that every day my head hurts from all the thinking and all the ideas and all like the different ways it could go. That's what I like, is that I'm able to do that. So
And I
I'm
found that
grateful. I'm
myself.
thankful for you to bounce these ideas off of. So.
And I want to relate to that too, because the negativity out there is, like I said before earlier on, it's out there and it's constant. This bad news is relentless. And how can you look at that any other way when you see the death and destruction than to feel sad about it? And I want to emphasize, I feel terrible when I see the destruction and human suffering out there. But you also have to try to get out of that headspace because it's not helping you personally at all. I don't mean you personally, but us,
No,
those of us who pay
absolutely, yeah.
attention.
It doesn't help the
A
self for sure.
Right, right. And for me, there were many years in my 50-year span where I actually detached from news and the libertarian movement at all. It's not that I disagreed with it, it's just that I couldn't handle so much negativity. So I just did other things in life, and that was fine. But this sort of return to this space is accompanied by insights and psychological analysis that it doesn't look like too many have done, probably because its perspective is so 30,000 foot and long term. But if the trend is there and it's real, and we really are on the transition to a free society, sustainably and tangibly, the thing I want to do most is to share it with my fellow travelers so they can at least see that there's real world reason for hope. And that's honestly my whole mission statement.
Well, let's leave it. That's a great mission statement. Let's leave it at that. Mark, how can we get a hold of you? How can we get your work? First of all, everyone, this 23-part Myth of Authority series that Mark did, absolutely brilliant. It's worth watching. You will literally, I think I said part 2 or part 3, you literally described the ICE agents doing what they did in Minnesota and in a weird broad way, like a very, and you're like, wow, it's so relatable. To your point, it's relatable because it's all been done before. It's like pattern. It's a redoing of history. Authority rears its ugly head over and over again and needs to be put back in its place over and over again.
Exactly right. Yeah. So it's on
So,
youtube.com
yeah.
at the White Pillbox, and also markmaresca.substack.com. That's typically the audio version of every YouTube video I do. So it's youtube.com at the White Pillbox. And that's my channel. And I'm very lucky to have the guests like yourself and others who have been so gracious to join me there.
Well, thank you. And I will highlight, you just recently had Keith Knight on, and Keith Knight, like I said, awesome. I have to show. Hopefully we'll be there, Freedom Fest. But we'll talk about that as well before we go. There's the 2 Keith Knight books I have. Freedom Fest, July 8th through the 12th. It's before that Larkin thing.
Larkin Rose is having an event. He hasn't decided on the actual venue yet, but it's going to be on July 18th. I think it's called Approaching Humanity. And if you go to his channel, you'll see him talking about that. And there'll be more news, I think, soon about that.
Yes, we want to send him that. But the week before that is Freedom Fest. And I have a feeling Amanda I met 2 years ago at Freedom Fest in Vegas. So it's going to be in Las Vegas, Caesars. Get a room at the Link or Harrah's, and it's connected to the Caesars convention. Caesars is across the street, the hotel part. So if you want to stay at the convention part, get a Link or Harrah's room. Whiskey 100, WHISKEY 100 gets you $100 off freedomfest.com tickets. So if you can make it, Mark, if you could make it, and we'll talk about that other thing offline. But that's a great thing for freedom lovers to get to. We're talking economists and this. Some of the ambassadors this year, Spike Cohen, Larry Sharp, Michael Shermer, the skeptic. I mean, it's crazy. Naomi Brockwell. It's amazing from Reason Magazine. So thank you, Mark. Thank you again for sharing your time. I literally messaged you this week, and this is what I love. The White Pill is like, hey, oh my gosh, yeah, I got time. Let's exchange ideas. Let's share a message. And I'm so grateful for you sharing your perspective.
You're very welcome. And it's
I don't know if Mark wants to share where he's from, but if you want to share where you're from, Mark,
no, I'm out here.
He's in Florida, but I don't know where he's from. Sounds like he's from New York over there.
Originally from Jersey. I'm a Jersey boy.
Yeah, I knew it. I'm Philly, my friend. I knew it. I got Philadelphia out of my accent over there. I don't even talk no Philadelphia anymore.
Well, no, you don't have it. You lost it. I lost most of my Jersey accent too. But when I'm with cousins or with relatives, it comes right back.
Before we call it, may I share May I share a white pill moment? Let's share. Let's end
Let's do
on
it.
this because okay, let me find it though because I have to find it. Hold on. Let's see. Where is it? Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. I don't know if I have it anymore, but let me see if I can. Hold on one more second. I'm not really good at this either. Okay, never mind. I don't have it, but I'll have to share it with you next time. It's a gentleman who sings outside of a Wawa convenience store and with a Philadelphia accent, and it's phenomenal. It's just so bad. It's the perfect thing
bad,
we're
it's
talking
perfect.
about. Make content. Make content. Don't absorb
Content.
content, people. How about that?
Content. That's it. There
There you
go.
go. Don't absorb, make. You want to make.
Right.
You want to make. You
Do.
don't want to absorb. Okay.
Do.
Mark, thank you again.
You're
Everyone,
welcome.
this has been another Knocked Conscious. Please stick around in the back end so we can talk, Mark. But everyone, stick around. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.
Everybody.